the day that the girls were coming, I had a work training event. And so, going, okay, well, I'm leaving now. And so she was also the first one to say, hey,
Right.
I think it's go time going through this. And it's just a really supportive team that I have. It's just like, okay, do what you need to do. Let us know how we can support it. My boss's exact words in her text to me when I told her we're expecting, she goes, okay, let me know what support looks like to you during this time.
Wow.
And I thought, like what a great response to any news like that, right? But just it's what I
Yes.
I don't know what I needed to hear, but then I saw that I'm like, that's what I needed.
This is NICU Babies Parent Support with Kathryn Whitaker, a podcast from Hand to Hold, a national nonprofit that provides free personalized support, resources, and community before, during, and after a NICU stay. My conversations here focus on education and personal stories with medical and hospital professionals, counselors, therapists, and NICU moms and dads from across the country. So whether you're preparing for a NICU stay, you're currently there, or you're months and years past your stay, you belong here. The NICU is hard. We're here to help. I'm your host, Kathryn Whitaker, the mom of 6 children, including my very own NICU baby, and I'm so grateful that you're here. Howdy, y'all, and welcome back to the podcast. So the season has been all about finding your new normal. And so we've had great conversations with parents in various stages of life and various ways in which they've parented their children, whether they were adopted, whether they came to them naturally. But today's guests are pretty unique in that what happens to them is so rare that they don't even keep records of it, or the records that they do have don't really matter because there's so few of them. So our guests today are Mercedes and Jonathan Sandhu. They are the parents of identical quadruplet girls. And I know that many of you listening are parents to multiples, whether that's twins, triplets, or even quads. And I thought, well, maybe it might be helpful to visit with a family that went from 2 children under the age of 3 to 6 children under the age of 3 and how they found their new normal. They were all over People Magazine, ABC News, just about every major outlet that you can imagine, sharing a little bit about what it's like to have 6 babies under the age of 3. And now there's 6 babies under the age of 4. Now that their boys have gotten a little bit older, they're 2 older ones. But it's a great conversation. I know that you're really going to enjoy hearing how they found out they were having quads and then what their day-to-day life looks like and what's expected for the girls as they get older. So I think you're going to love this conversation. My guests today are both Jonathan and Mercedes Sandhu. They are 2 engineers who had 6 kids in 4 years, including a set of identical quadruplets born in 2024. They live in Pearland, Texas, just south of Houston, and are trying to figure out how to balance careers, kids, and still have time to watch football. I do think it's worth noting that tomorrow, the quadruplets celebrate their very first birthday. And so with that, let's have a great conversation. Well, I'm really happy to have, y'all are kind of famous in the world of the news, but I love that you have taken great strides in sharing bits and pieces of your families, sort of demystify what it's like to raise multiples. But Mercedes and Jonathan, thanks for being here today.
Happy to be here, Kathryn.
I'm going to start with you, Mercedes. So sometimes when people hear that you have multiples, their first question is, were there fertility treatments involved? And did you have a history of maybe difficult pregnancies? So maybe we'll start with that question because I think it might be on the minds of people who are listening.
Good question. So, no, we did not have any fertility treatments, nor did we have a family history of multiples. As far as we can tell, I think my mother told me that maybe my grandpa remembers maybe his mother having twins, but that's a big maybe.
Yeah.
So, as far as we know, no family history of multiples on either side.
So I want to know, I guess, from both of your perspectives, what was it like on the day that you found out that you were not carrying 1 or 2 or 3, but 4 babies in utero?
So, from my perspective, this is our 3rd pregnancy. I have 2 boys. We have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. And this being our 3rd pregnancy, for the first appointment, I told Jonathan, I said, don't worry about coming to this appointment. You can come, there will be plenty of appointments to come to.
Well, you weren't lying. There were plenty of appointments.
There were. And I meant it. I was perfectly fine with him staying back for this one. And so I'm in the ultrasound room and I can see the screen and it's like something doesn't look right. And the technician goes, oh, I see 1, 2, 3. And she, as she was counting, when she counted past 2, I was like, no way is this. It was so unbelievable. I was a lot of emotions between,
Sure.
being scared, like, how could this happen? What are we going to do? Just all of the feelings I was feeling at that time. And my doctor, once when we went over she looked at the ultrasound with me. She was like, okay, we need to call your Jonathan right now. And so we called Jonathan, had him on speakerphone, and I told him I was crying and laughing at the same time. It's like, we're having quadruplets. And that's when my doctor took over. And I'll let Jonathan explain how he was feeling when
Yeah.
he received a call.
Did she tell you to sit down before you picked up the phone?
No, no. So it just starts, she's like, and I'm at the appointment and she's like she said, laughing and crying. And then goes, we're having quadruplets. And so we joke around a lot. We're both into to jokes. And I'm like, that's not really a funny joke. And that's also just kind of just so out there. And I'm like, are you serious? And she's like, yep. And she's still kind of laughing and crying. And I'm like, well, no, but you said quadruplets. So I don't think you're serious because there's no way. And then
Right.
her doctor got on the phone and said, this is Dr. Hernandez, which, we know her pretty well. It's like, this is a very high risk pregnancy, and just starts going through like, here's the things that you guys need to start really thinking about now. And she was just, very direct, and she's just a wonderful person. Was like, here are the things you start doing. Typically people don't, let folks know in their first trimester that they're expecting. You guys should, so people can start praying for you. And that's when it clicked for me of like, okay, one, this is real, and two, this is very serious.
Right. I mean, I know that we joke now you have 4 babies that you got to bring home from the NICU. Not everybody gets to do that.
Mm.
So, as you're sort of navigating all of your maternal fetal medicine appointments and a whole team of people, what were some of the biggest fears? What were some of the things that you were like, okay, that feels like we can do that, but that maybe feels like this is a lot. Jonathan, I'll start with you.
Yeah, all of it was scary. It's one of those
Yeah.
things that every scenario you either have, when they were born, our oldest was 3. So it's having 6 kids aged 3 and under is the best case scenario, so to speak,
Right.
or there's a scenario that you don't, not everybody makes it, right? And so, looking at it and going, all right, somewhere between 0 and 4 babies might come home. And if you read anything about high order multiples, they're at risk for all of the bad things. And so's the mother. So just going through that of looking like, okay, this is going to be a very difficult road for all of us. And, just trying to think through, okay, well, what can we manage and what does that look like? And just trying to get your mindset for those, potential scenarios.
I hadn't even thought about that, that not only were you concerned and worried about the babies, but you, Jonathan, were also worried and concerned about your wife.
Oh, yes. And that was, a very, very, huge concern. And I wouldn't bring it up to her just because we'd go through all these scenarios, and then Mercedes, in her infinite kindness, would wait till it'd be 9:30 at night when we're winding down, and then would go, well, what if I don't make it? And it's those things, just
Mm.
those really heavy conversations that, and I would tell her, it's like, I don't want to start planning through that. And even with that, there's a lot of different scenarios of, we lose Mercedes and the girls.
Right.
Or, we lose Mercedes but keep the girls. And then I am a single father with 6 kids age 3 and under, and just going through like losing, the love of your life and all of that
Mm.
too, right? And trying to figure it out. And it was just a really, really scary time.
Your doctor sounds like she was wise when she said not only pray for the babies, but also for y'all. That sounds really hard. Certainly not what most people think of when they get the positive little sign on the pregnancy test. So,
hmm
Mercedes, what about you? What felt like manageable and what felt overwhelming when you were sort of navigating through that pregnancy with all those babies?
To echo what Jonathan said, like, what felt overwhelming was all of the possibilities, whether,
Mhm.
that be babies who don't get to come home, or babies born with long term health issues, or me, and, of course, the effect that this would have on our kids. All of the possibilities were hard to wrap my head around. And, when I was throughout my pregnancy and, trying to stay healthy and make sure I was doing enough to, stay active for my kids, the two that I do have, but also limit so that way I wasn't putting too much pressure on my body for the 4 babies that, I was carrying. What made it manageable was our 2 boys, really. And it's crazy that I say that, but they're at the time they were 3 and 1, now they are 4 and 2, but they're just that age, they're always so busy. They're running around, they want something, they want to be played with, and they don't think about what could happen the next day or a week from now. And it
Sure.
was being able to be in the moment with our boys and my husband really took my mind off of the what ifs.
Well, it must have been nice to be around 2 people that loved you that weren't constantly asking you
Yes.
questions about, Mom, how are you feeling? Mom, what
Right.
about this? What about that? They just wanted to play with you. So
Exactly.
did you tell anything to your 3-year-old? I mean, obviously they knew that you were pregnant.
Mhm.
1-year-old's too small, but what did you share with your 3-year-old?
Well, we told him that mommy had 4 babies, and when we found out they were all girls, 4 sisters, and for him, it's just like, okay.
I love
he
it. Kids are
he
like,
just
great, perfect.
he just accepted it, and it was like, okay, this will be our life.
I love the blind faith there. Sometimes it's reassuring to have someone at the
Mhm.
table that's like not concerned about all the things that you are. Okay, so you get to 29 weeks for delivery. Was that I guess I should ask, what was the goal? What were they hoping that you would get to? And then tell us a little bit about delivery day. So I'll let you tell us what the goal was, and I'll let Mercedes tell us about delivery day.
Yeah, so there's really 2 parts to the goal. So we had a great MFM, and what she had said was, hey, let's try to get to 32 weeks, but we probably won't get there. So the first goal was to get to 23 weeks, which they've got a chance at surviving. So it was just doing everything we can to try to make it to 23 weeks. And then it was, okay, we made it to 23 weeks. Let's try to get to 24. And then 28 weeks is a really key milestone for lung development. So going, okay, can we get to 28 weeks? And I tell you what, Kathryn, once we made it to 28 weeks, I'm like, okay, you know what?
Yeah.
Everything after this is fine. And it's just another day. It's another blessing. And it's so funny now we think about it, like they were born 11 weeks premature. And if it would have just been a singleton that we weren't expecting it, that would have been a traumatic experience of like, okay,
Right.
a lengthy NICU stay. But for us, it was great. They were only born 11 weeks premature. It wasn't anything more than that. So just, that changing of expectations and just the response to it.
Sure. No, I think every parent that maybe knows that we also knew that we were going to have a NICU stay. And I remember counting the weeks, like, okay, if we get to this, we have lung development. If we get to this, we have this development. So you just like celebrate every week inside is one less week in the NICU. So yes, I completely understand. Just on one scale, not on 4 scales. So Mercedes, tell me about delivery day. Was it, I guess, tell me about how delivery sort of happened, and then the committee that you had in the delivery room.
So the day of delivery, well, I will say a week before that, we had a short hospital stay, about an overnight stay, just for some monitoring of the babies. I was allowed to go home, but my doctor wanted to see me a little bit more frequently. So the day before delivery day, we had gone in. We're like, okay, you're going to need to come in every day for a while, just to keep monitoring the babies. So the day of delivery, I also told Jonathan, I believe he had a work function to go to. I was like, don't worry, my parents are in town.
He's never going to believe you when you tell him that again, by the way.
I know, he won't.
Wait, just if I may interrupt, I only missed 2 ultrasounds the entire pregnancy out of everything that happened. And it was the first and the last, the worst ones I could have possibly missed.
Oh my gosh.
And so we were going through the monitoring of the babies, and so they are identical. They share one placenta. And at the time, between 2 babies, it looked like the placenta was essentially reaching its life limit, and it was starting to affect 2 of the babies. So my doctor was like, okay, today's the day. We wanted to wait. I think we could have, but we're going to deliver today. And again, called Jonathan with another doctor next to me. And we were like, Jonathan, you have to come to the hospital now. We're delivering in 3 hours. In 3 hours, I think, Jonathan. That's what it was.
2.5 hours. And
2.5
for context too, Mercedes was with her parents. I wasn't just like, you got it, go Uber there, Uber back.
It's fine. It's fine. Yeah.
But yeah,
Yes.
so because I was able to check the phone records, so I got the call at 11:37, and then our fourth girl was born at 2:03.
Wow.
So just start to finish, yeah.
So how many people per baby were with you in delivery?
Jonathan remembers this more than I do because it's all a bit of a
Oh, I
blur.
bet. I bet it is. I bet it is.
So there was four for each baby, but then where it gets a little fuzzy, I can't remember. I think there was one respiratory therapist for two babies as well, and then the one of the heads of the NICU department was down there. Then they had a few nurses that were just monitoring everything, and then there was a whole team from Mercedes too. So I lost track, I think after like 23, 24, just people, because everyone's moving around too,
Sure.
right? But it was a ridiculous amount to process. And the thing that I wasn't expecting, they took Mercedes back to get prepped, and I thought it was going to be like our singletons get prepped, they'll go back there, and then they start everything. I walked in as they were getting ready to take the first baby out, and the team was already there. So it was just really, really overwhelming to take it all in
Oh, I bet.
for every level.
And y'all were at Texas Children's, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
So to give people some perspective, like the chances of having multiples, quads that are all sharing the same placenta, am I right? 1 in 15 million?
So identical is 1 in 15 million. Monochronic or all in one placenta is more rare than that. And a few data points. And our doctor still gives me grief because I keep asking her, well, how rare is that? She's like, nobody keeps records of this.
It's rare. Yeah,
But
it's super rare.
the couple data points would be that, Texas Children's Hospital is one of the best multi-gestational hospitals in the world.
Yes.
And when we're talking about saying it could be monochronic, they're on one placenta, I was like, okay, well, when's the last time Texas Children's had that? What did that look like? And our doctors turned to me and said, this is the first for the hospital.
Wow.
And that's when we were like, so in completely unknown territory, they're at high risk for twin-to-twin transfusion being all in one placenta, but
Yes.
they monitor for it. And during one of the ultrasounds afterwards, one of the doctors came in and said, look, we haven't seen any signs of it, and we really expected to see it. He's like, my theory is that with four in one placenta, they just kind of balance out. So one's pulling more from one, then the other one pulls more from the other one, and they just kind of go through like that. And he's like, I want to be very clear, it's just a theory. We have no data for this because it's such a rare thing to see. So it was just all these uncharted waters that we were trying to navigate and trying to see what should we expect and what would be possible outcomes.
So biggest baby, smallest baby, Mercedes.
Anna is was born our biggest baby. She was born first, and Petra is our smallest. She was born last.
Give us an idea of about how long you stayed I know that you won't know about how long. I know you'll know the days. How many days you stayed in the hospital, in the NICU with each one of your babies. So who was the first one to come home and who was the last baby to come home?
So Hannah and Petra were the first babies to come home, and then Rebecca was our last baby to come home. And Jonathan is very good at remembering numbers and durations.
Jonathan's not as good as remembering as he is taking notes. So I pulled up my notes. So,
Love
because
that.
they all start to blur together. So Hannah and Petra came home after 73 days in the NICU.
Okay.
Lucy came home after 77, and then Rebecca stayed in there for 86 days. She had some acid reflux that they just wanted to keep monitoring for that. And then their weights that they all range between 2 pounds 7 ounces and 2 pounds 13 ounces when they were born.
Wow. Okay, so let's talk about you get home, and I know you sort of get the slow fade, right? Like you get one baby and then you get another baby. And so babies are starting to come home and your house is starting to fill up. Mercedes, as all the babies come home, what's like day-to-day life, giving people an idea of what's it like? I know what it's like to manage 6, but I have a 13-year span between my oldest and my youngest, 8 years with the first 5. And so give people an idea of what that's like to manage a daily household. At the time, 6 kids, 3 and under, now 4 and under. What does your daily life look like? This podcast is produced by Hand to Hold, a national nonprofit, but we're more than simply a podcast. Be sure to download our app in the Apple Store or on Google Play, or you can visit our website to discover all the ways that we can support you as a NICU parent at handtohold.org. You can join one of our support groups, sign up for counseling, find loss and bereavement support, request a peer mentor, or check out our educational resources and family stories. And all of that is at no cost to you.
So when they came home, we were both lucky enough to have friends or family help out. So it was always us with my mom or us with Jonathan's mom. And so we had someone around for the first several weeks to help us adjust.
Sure.
And we really appreciated the extra hands to help with our boys. So that way, Jonathan and I can focus on the babies. And when the girls started coming home, they were still very much small. Like, so they just wanted to eat and sleep and poop and pee.
Yes.
And so, we would feed them, change them, put them down to sleep, rinse and repeat. Thankfully, because they were in the NICU, they were on a very good eating and sleeping schedule. I think that helped them
That is
and
a
that helped
perk of the
us.
NICU. I'm like, every 3 hours, my
Mhm.
kids knew, okay, this is going to
Yes.
happen. It is a nice perk.
Yes.
I mean, if there have to be perks from the NICU, at least that's one,
Mhm.
right?
Yes. And so I used that downtime to nap and catch up on sleep whenever I could or play with our kids. And Jonathan also kind of we rotated back and forth. After a couple weeks of Jonathan and I sharing, duties with the kids, we were like, okay, let's try one person take care of two kids or one person take care of three babies, more specifically, and person take care of all four. And once we found a system that worked where one person could take care of four babies, then the other person hung out with our two other kids. And we do that. We continue that till today. We're on weekends when our boys are not in daycare. One of us will take the kids grocery shopping. We'll go to the playground, go on walks, runs, come home, and kind of switch. So we're both able to spend time with all of our kids.
That sounds very engineer of both of you that you have systems in place. I'm so impressed with the two of you. I love that so much. So, also, I mean, I know that you're taking care of babies, but I suspect that there were lots of follow up visits with whether it's your pediatrician or special. So, how do you balance that? I think it's the part of the NICU experience that nobody really talks about is I felt like the easy part was the NICU. You get home and you're like, oh, these kids are all my responsibility now. How did you figure out this baby needs this doctor's appointment, this baby needs this doctor's appointment, and we're also going to try to do things here at the house?
So we do two doctor's appointment or two kids have a doctor's appointment on the same day. That's how we manage doctor's appointments. So Jonathan and I we both are blessed to be able to have jobs that are very supportive of us taking time to attend a kid's doctor's appointment together. And that's how we are manage it at this point. I know once they start getting older and they start moving around, it'll be a little
Sure.
trickier.
Let's maybe switch gears a little bit. Mercedes brought that up about your work environment. How did your coworkers respond and how are they finding ways to support you as you're trying to navigate a bigger household than you imagined?
Yeah, it's really funny, Catherine. The first person I told that we were expecting quadruplets was my boss because when I got the news here, I just left the office and just drove. And I stopped and I thought, I should probably let my boss know that I'm just going to be out. So I pulled over and sent her a text and said, hey, we're expecting quadruplets. I'm going to be out the rest of today. And I was in a weird headspace, right? So I'm not sure about tomorrow or next week. I'm just taking it hour by hour right now. And she sent back a very supportive note. And then, well, the day that the girls were coming, I had a work training event. And so, going, okay, well, I'm leaving now. And so she was also the first one to say, hey,
Right.
I think it's go time going through this. And it's just a really supportive team that I have. It's just like, okay, do what you need to do. Let us know how we can support it. My boss's exact words in her text to me when I told her we're expecting, she goes, okay, let me know what support looks like to you during this time.
Wow.
And I thought, like what a great response to any news like that, right? But just it's what I
Yes.
I don't know what I needed to hear, but then I saw that I'm like, that's what I needed. And so it's just been reassessing different things. And I told my team from the beginning of, look, I don't know what this is going to look like. I may be out for different periods. We're just going to take it day by day. And like Mercedes mentioned, we had an overnight stay. So we would just keep, bags packed in the car and saying, all right, we're going to go for a 3 to 4 hour long ultrasound that may turn into more than that. We're
Right.
just taking it day by day.
I know we talked a lot about the babies, but I'm curious how the two of you are taking care of each other.
Mhm.
Mercedes, you want to take that one?
Oh man. So up until maybe 3 months ago, one of us would try to go to sleep early. So that way, the girls now are sleeping through the night for the most part. But up until like 3 months ago, we would take turns. So someone would go to sleep, I'd be up for 4 hours and we'd flip. we switched back and forth. So we shared that responsibility. So we didn't get to spend a lot of time before and after work, getting to talk to each other.
Right.
Once they started sleeping a little bit better, from the time we put our boys down, we have about a good hour and a half to catch up and talk about our day and, just reconnect at the end of the day. Because
Yeah.
in all of it, watching the boys, taking care of the girls, the focus is always on them. But when it's
Right.
just the two of us, we're able to reconnect at the end of the day, which is nice.
Mhm.
Jonathan, what about you?
Oh, yeah, I think it's great. It's one of the things I look forward to, at the end of the day, that we're just able to have just kind of the downtime for us and just a good way to end the day.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then during the pregnancy, I felt like we got really close to it. At least I felt like we got really close
Mhm.
because we had so many doctor's appointments that they're, hours long. So it's just you and you just get a chance to just kind of sit down and talk through it and just connect. And, it's like, let's be real. This was a fairly traumatic experience going through
Of
all of it. And when
course.
you go through that with somebody that you loved with all your heart as a baseline, I felt like it really brought us a lot closer together to go through it. And, just by the grace of God, we're all healthy. Everyone's fine. I say we a lot in this. I was just kind of there for most of it.
You did
Mercedes
help
did really
make the
all the
baby,
work.
so you're a big part of this deal too. And you were certainly supportive of her. So yeah.
That's why, Kathryn, I find the term spontaneous pregnancy very offensive because it wasn't just, like an immaculate conception.
Right.
So I feel like it just, as the dad, it negates my involvement in it.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, our kids are a little bit older, so I know that our preemie's now 15. But as I think about those early days, it was really difficult to find moments to connect because it felt like our life revolved around his medical care and all of our other kids. It wasn't until months later we ended up in marriage counseling, but it wasn't until months later and even years later that I realized, hey, if we don't start taking care of us, who's going to take care of this family? And so that's the reason why I
Mhm.
asked that question. I think whether you have 4 babies or 1 baby, the traumatic stay of a NICU, the traumatic experience of a hard birth and a hard delivery is that you have to connect with each other, or when you get to the end, there's not much left. So I think
Mhm.
it's important for people to hear how you take care of each other. And also, it comes in seasons, right? Some seasons are harder than others. And so you kind of find your footing. I know that y'all had a little bit of a connection to hand to hold. And so I wanted to visit a little bit about that experience for y'all.
Yeah, it was great that there was essentially a support team there when you get to the NICU, right? Because it's so overwhelming. You're trying to
Right.
process it. And the medical team is there to treat the babies, right? And we had a fantastic staff and they were just amazing. But, no one, was taking a step back and going, hey, let's kind of grab everything and kind of looking at that. And so it was just really nice to have a group that exists to do that, right? And then, the milestones of like, here are the milestones to start looking towards. Because I didn't even know what they were going to have like,
Right.
being on room air, the little things that you're like, okay, you know, uh, getting off of a feeding tube, all that stuff of like, okay, this is laying out, this is what it looks like. And to
Yeah.
start kind of moving it down through there was just really nice.
Well, I know that y'all got a ton of press probably while you were in the NICU and certainly when you got home from media outlets all over. How did you balance, okay, I'm going to respond to this media request, but also I need to feed this baby or I need to get some sleep? Like, how did you sort of tell the world this pretty beautiful story, but at the same time honor the time that you had with your family? Mercedes?
So I think when we had our first request, it may have been sent to Jonathan, and we talked about it, and I said, okay, I'm fine with it. And how we decided, we just talked about it, looked at what the week looked like. Jonathan really listened to me and how I was feeling, and if I was really
Mhm.
tired, because I was still recovering
Sure.
postpartum and visiting the boys, or not visiting the girls in the hospital and taking care of the boys. So some weeks I just didn't feel like it, I'll be
Right.
honest. And other times I said, okay, yes, this is feels like a good day, we can respond to this one. So I really thank Jonathan. I give him a lot of credit for honoring and respecting how I was feeling.
Well, and it was so funny too because our first priority was the girls and Mercedes. So going through it, And so you'd get a call, and there's a couple of them that were kind of funny, but the one that stands out the most was ABC World News, and it was on a Friday. They're like, "Hey, we'd like to run this with you." And I was like, "Man, I'm kind of tired. I don't know if I really just want to deal with this." Not no offense to them, but it's like, Mercedes, what are you just like? I'm just want to go feed the girls. I'm like, okay. Yeah, we just can't fit this in. And then afterwards, and the producers were very polite and very understanding. And it's like, oh, I can't imagine another time in my life that it's like I would just tell ABC and just be like,
Right.
sorry, can't squeeze you guys in. Got,
Right.
some lives to take care of. Maybe next time. And it was just, and even looking back, it was just really funny. But it was just, your priorities shift a lot. It's just different.
Well, most people might say, why would you ever turn that down? But I think that
Mhm.
speaks well to the fact that your priorities were in the right place and that, hey,
Mm.
our health is important. We have to get sleep to take care of our babies. And also, we just, like Mercedes said, like it's just too much. Because as much as people want to hear the story, you're like, we'll still be here next week or the week
Mhm.
after. Like, let's find a better time to do it. I think that speaks well to good boundaries of knowing what you need to take care of within your own family and then how you share that with the world. So, babies are born in 2024. What would you go back and tell yourself, maybe the 2023 Mercedes, before you got pregnant, before this was your life? What advice would you give to her knowing what you know now?
Knowing what I know now, I would say just take everything day by day, and
Yeah.
it can be a lot to worry about taking care of 6 kids. What'll college sending 6 kids to college look like for 6 kids, and all of the things, but, you know, tomorrow's not guaranteed, and
Yeah.
taking things day by day, enjoying the time I do have with their kids, and yes, thinking about the future, but really enjoying the present.
Of course. Jonathan, I'm going to switch gears with you. And I just want to ask you, is there a moment, whether it's during the pregnancy, during the delivery, or even since the babies have come home, that really sticks out to you as, yeah, that was a moment that's going to stay with me for a long time?
Oh, there are a lot. There were just a lot of just surreal moments. The one that sticks out the most to me, and man, I hope I remember it till the day I die, was when we heard the babies cry for the first time.
Mm.
And so it was really two parts to that. It meant that so when they were doing scans, they're at 29 weeks, so their lungs should be developed, but they weren't seeing all of their lungs fully flex. And so there
Right.
was a concern of like, okay, we're kind of on the borderline. They should be okay, but we don't know. So when they were born and we could hear them cry, Mercedes and I just looked at each other. We knew they could breathe, and so they were crying on their own. So that meant that they were able to breathe on their own, and that was just so reassuring. And then later on, the other big part was just that night at the hospital, and just realizing that everybody made it through that part, and that was just such a big part to get there. I wouldn't say I felt joy or sorrow or overwhelming. It was just relief. I was
Yeah.
just so relieved and just so happy that like, okay, we're here. I can just relax a little bit. Yeah, we've got the whole life thing to figure out and all of
Right.
that, but everybody
Mhm.
survived to this point, and that was the really scary part. There's complications for the mom through the pregnancy, but then also the delivery, and sitting there and looking over, and they were bringing pints of blood in to have ready in case you started
Mm.
hemorrhaging. And so there,
Oh,
the doctor's like, oh yeah, it's a fairly low risk, and it's hard to process fairly low risk, and you're staring at pints of blood that are on
right.
standby, and just going, okay.
Well, you must have been carrying a lot of anxiety, and that's maybe putting it mildly. And then you get to that point, and you're like, okay, now I can exhale for this big thing that I've been holding on to for all these months. And then now we're going to take a deep breath, and now we're going to go, as you said, move on
Mm.
into the rest of their lives and what that may look like for our family. But I'm grateful. Thank you for sharing what you do on social media. I think it's not only encouraging to other parents of multiples, whether they have four or less, that it gives them a glimpse into what your world looks like, but also how you prioritize your family and prioritize your children over all the other things that you do. So thank you guys for sharing a little bit of that with us today. Well, in today's 2-minute take, first, let me take a quick second to just say happy early birthday to the quads, Hannah, Lucy, Rebecca, and Petra. And let's be honest. Also, Jonathan and Mercedes, you did it. You made it through your first year, which probably feels pretty surreal. So I just wanted to say a happy early birthday. As I was listening back to our interview and just watching, if you watch this on YouTube, you got a chance to see this, the interaction between Mercedes and Jonathan, it was really beautiful. And it reminded me how important it is to have a team of people. In their case, it's a spouse. It might be a grandparent or another family member for you, or it could be a community that lives in your neighborhood or your church community. But this idea that we don't have to do things alone, and that our kids thrive and do so much better when we have a community of people around us. I really loved watching the interaction of the two of them as they shared how they found out and what their daily life looks like, and sort of how they divide and conquer, and how they're creating their family. I mean, not many people can say they have 6 children under the age of 4. And when the quads were born, it was 6 children under the age of 3. I know that takes a massive amount of coordination, but it also takes a lot of surrender, right? This was our life. And now we're going to have to take a deep dive into what our new normal is going to look like. And we're going to do this together. And there's going to be a lot of surrendering, a lot of compromising, and a lot of, I have no idea what we're doing, but we're going to figure it out. And there's so much joy. If you don't follow Jonathan on social media, you absolutely should. It's the Sandhu Crew. It's SAND and then HU. I've linked it all in the show notes. It's just a great follow, a great perspective reminder that everyone goes through challenges. And if you surround yourself with the right people, you can move through those challenges better and more whole because you didn't do it alone. And so, Jonathan, Mercedes, thank you for sharing the gift of your family with all of our listeners. Y'all are such a great team. We've got 2 more episodes. I think that's right. I think we have, maybe it's just 1. Let me look. But what I'm saying is the season's almost wrapping up, which is hard to believe. No, we have 2 more. I just looked at my notes. We have 2 more. So don't go anywhere, because next time that you listen to the podcast, this is a little bit about what you're going to hear.
And so the CASA is really the one that's able to get to know the child on an intimate level and really speak on what's best for them and on their behalf, and kind of be their voice in court, so to speak, right? And so there's a lot of times where the caseworkers can have 40, 50 cases at a time. There's no way they're even spending an hour on the case a week. I mean, they just can't based on capacity. Whereas you might have 1 case and get to really know that child.
It feels like you're like the human connection.
Yes. That's a good way to think. I'm not the person that's legally bound to anything. I'm a volunteer. So yes.